Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today, joined as always by my co hosts, Mike Carter and Dave Funnel. Fellas, we got a good one tonight. We're going to be talking some playing time trends, looking at some beat writer articles, also going to be talking injuries and looking at some bullpens. And of course, we'll be ending with our mental health minute. So stay tuned. We've got some good information from you. But my first question is: so we're recording this on Thursday night, and I'm looking at this game between the Astros and the Rangers. We've got a great pitchers duel going on right now between Jacob deGrom and Hunter Brown. So I know we had a lot of debate about deGrom in the offseason. I know, Dave, you were pretty tentative with drafting him, feeling he was too much of a risk. Was he going to be the same pitcher? He's been healthy. He hasn't been vintage deGrom, right? But he's been really good, especially the past few starts. Hunter Brown seems to be taking the next step that a lot of people thought he would this year, and I think he's entering the conversation of like SP1, back end SP1 at this point. So I want to lead with this. Who do you have rest of season? Who do you have ranked higher, Jacob deGrom or Hunter Brown? And I'm going to start with you, Mike.
Well, last year I drafted deGrom knowing in my home league, which is a keeper league, I drafted deGrom for $6, and I'm reaping the value of that at this point. You're right about Hunter Brown. He is an SP1. I'll still say this about deGrom, though. I think when he's on, and your point is well taken. I mean, Brown has been fantastic. deGrom is maybe not fully vintage deGrom, but if you look at the StatCast, I mean, are you going to quit? You're going to quibble over his ground ball rate? I mean, like he's been on fire. He's been great. The strikeout rate looks good. The walkout rate is less than 6%. The four-seamer looks like it's got life. He's made 9 starts. He looks like he's healthy. I'm going deGrom on this one.
Dave, what about you?
Yeah, it's funny that I'm going to punish someone for having a 5.9% walk rate, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm still going to take Hunter Brown simply because deGrom is the one coming back from his second Tommy John surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So just for that reason alone, even though they're both performing at an elite level, I'm going to take Hunter Brown. I just worry about long term if deGrom can, coming back from Tommy John, it's the command and the control that's the hardest to get back. So for that reason, I'll take Brown.
You're killing me. Yeah, you're killing me with I mean, not that I didn't expect you to say that, because you're the injury guy, right? And I know you're super hesitant to take these guys that have any type of risk. But I mean, at this point, so he came back last year, right?
Yes.
He already showed you like he was healthy enough. It was only 2 or 3 starts last year. Now he's full go early in this season. Again, not what he was necessarily, but still really, really good. So at this point, I feel like deGrom, yes, he doesn't have the innings, right? Like we have to kind of dock him a little bit with innings just because of the history. But I still got to take my boy. I got to take deGrom. I know we went back and forth all off season, and I'm not wavering. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Though Hunter Brown has looked amazing, and I think he's taking that next step. So
listen, there's a place for gut in this too. I know we always want to talk about metrics and underlying metrics and all this other stuff. deGrom has already thrown more innings this year than he had in 23 and 24 combined, right? At the beginning of the season in the wintertime, when I told you guys that I was going to keep him and the price that I was keeping him at, you said that was a good idea. But Dave, of course, had to crap all over what I do because Dave says, "Ooh, I don't know. I mean, take somebody that's less injury risk." But I said in January, I got a feeling, my gut is that he's going to be healthy this year. So far, knock on wood, he's made all 9 starts that he's been on the docket for. Yeah. Hoping that continues. I'm probably jinxing myself by even opening my mouth.
Well, to be fair, he did do in the offseason, or at spring, what I hoped that he would do was that he would lower his velocity. because if you look, anytime his velocity is at his max, that's when he starts to get injured. So he's making a conscious effort to lower that velocity. If he can keep that down, I think he can succeed. But I don't know. I'm just going by the history of Tommy John and double Tommy John. And it's, I mean, if there's one guy who could do it, it is him. But I'll go against the odds right now, and I'll take him.
Let's talk about a pitcher who is definitely no longer an SP1. And this is the pitcher that I'm done. I'm done with this guy. And the pitcher I'm referring to is Aaron Nola. Now, he just came off yesterday, giving up 9 runs and 12 hits, allowing 3 home runs to the Cardinals at home. And one of the articles that I was, beat writer articles that I was looking at was the game write-up yesterday regarding that start. And, you know, a lot of the coach speak. They talked to Rob Thompson. They talked to Nola. One thing that they noted in the article that I found interesting was that he's allowing a very high rate of 2-strike hits. He allowed 6 2-strike hits yesterday. He's allowed 27 this season, second in the major leagues to Atlanta's Chris Sale. So I don't know if that's really just bad luck, you know, giving up those hits with 2 strikes in the count. I know there's been some research is I'd say not really research, but kind of anecdotally, like there's some luck involved when you know, a pitcher gets to like 2 strikes or full count rather, and they give up a walk as opposed to a strikeout. So I don't know if this is kind of the same thing, but bottom line is that I think we're finally seeing the decline. He does this weird thing too, where it's like every other year with him, like he has one good year, then one really bad year. And I just feel like this is worse than we've seen. So my question to you guys is, what are you doing with Nola? I mean, where would you rank him rest of season? I'll even ask you a short term. Like, he starts at Colorado next week. Do you feel confident starting Aaron Nola at Coors Field against the Rockies?
I don't feel comfortable with anyone really at Colorado, much less someone who right now he's got a 6.16 ERA. With Nola, the only thing I will say is that his whiff rate is on par with his career norms. And a lot of things that I was reading about his last start was that it was one of those starts where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But he hasn't looked himself at all this year. He had a decent stretch after starting off really poorly where you had some hope. The only thing I might do with Nola is to buy extremely low from a frustrated owner who might just want to get rid of him for anything.
That would be me. Yep.
Yeah. But I would not be willing to give up much of anything, and I would have a very short leash just in case what we're seeing now is what we'll see for the rest of the season.
You know what it is? I don't know if you've had this experience, Mike, but like I've had a lot of Aaron Nola over the past few years, and there's something about him that's like particularly frustrating. And I think part of it is that I never know, like these blow-ups just seem to come in matchups that I would expect him to do well. Like yesterday, he was facing the Cardinals at home. Now, the Cardinals are not a terrible offense. They're kind of middle of the road. But like I looked at that on the schedule and I'm like, I felt pretty good about that one. You know, you guys know how tentative I am with starting pitchers on the road. Like I'm very like when I choose who to start each week, I really look at it based on matchup. And you would be surprised. Sometimes I'm benching guys that like very few people are benching, but I just don't like the matchup. And I looked at that one yesterday and I'm like, I expected a pretty good game, and obviously he gets blown up, and I feel like with him that happens quite a bit. I just never know when to start him. I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really frustrating guy to own, to roster, I should say. I mean,
Don't say own.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. It's been a long day. he's a tough guy to roster because when you look at him, you feel like he should be better than what he is, right? I mean, the home runs are killer for him. I mean, he's always given up a lot of home runs. He's also thrown over 1,600 innings in major leagues. I mean, he has, he's thrown 190 innings almost every season he's been in, other than the season that we had COVID in 2020. He's always going to be consistent in that regard. So you're really rostering him for, strikeouts and hopefully wins. You're not going to get great ratios usually out of him. And so, he's 31. He could be on the downside of that, but there's some indication that perhaps maybe there's been a little bit of bad luck here too. And so because of the fact that you probably used pretty high draft capital on a guy who's now 1-7, I don't know if you can really get rid of him or jettison him. I mean, do you bench him and hope that, he turns it around the next 2 or 3 starts and then put him back into your rotation? He's figured it out before. Now, granted, it's never been this bad for this long, right? It doesn't seem like. I mean, if you go back to 23 and then go back to 21 where he had ERAs that were almost 5, yeah, maybe he's been there before. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt for another start or two and then see if he turns it around. And if not, then you got a different problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is too, like the underlying skills, like I don't, you guys know me. I don't look at ERA. I don't look at wins and losses. Like all I want to know is like, what is like the swinging strike rate? I'm looking deep at the underlying skills, and the skills for Nola always look good, but I feel like like he's one guy, like I just can't trust that, because like he could look great underneath the hood, have a good swinging strike rate, good O swings, contact, all that stuff, and then he just goes out and just craps the bed. So I don't know. I find myself more frustrated with him than I think most pitchers for whatever reason. It's just a strange thing. But anyway, and I want to give credit to who wrote the articles, Todd Zalecki over at MLB.com, who does really good work covering the Phillies.
It's terrific.
Let's talk about someone staying in the NL East here and looking at an article by Anthony DiComo. And this one stood out to me because he was talking about the rotation for the Mets and kind of what their possibilities are moving forward. We know Montas and Manaea eventually will be back. I mean, that it seems like at least for Manaea, that return is taking longer than they originally anticipated. They talked about some rotation options. Blake Tidwell was mentioned, who he did come up for a spot start that didn't go too well. So Brandon Sproat was someone that a lot of people were on in the offseason as someone who could potentially contribute. He's been, notes in the article, he's been up and down at Syracuse. One player that he does mention, who honestly I didn't even know who this was, but their fifth ranked prospect by the name of Nolan McLean, who was recently promoted to Syracuse, debuted with 7 shutout innings. And it's noted here that more than one scout who watched the Mets this spring preferred McLean over Sproat as the team's most promising long-term prospect. So, it's basically saying that there's a chance we could see McLean leapfrog Sproat in the pecking order and potentially get a shot here in the rotation to see what they have. So a name, especially those of you who are in, dynasty keeper formats, a name to think about and someone, maybe to possibly acquire and monitor how he does now that he's up in AAA, because it seems like he's knocking on the door. Real quickly, Dave, any updates? Just give me like a general time frame that you think Manaea and Montas are back.
Okay, I'll give you actually 3 because they did mention Blackburn as well, and he's probably going to be the one who's first in line to come back. He's in AA right now.
I totally forgot about Paul Blackburn. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay, and I think the Mets might too, but he's up to 75 pitches already in AA, so he will probably be back soon. And it was a knee injury; it wasn't an arm injury. As for the other 2, I think Montas will be up first. He suffered a lat injury almost right when camp started. He was on the 60-day IL. He's throwing bullpens right now, but he's still not expected back for about another month. And then Sean Manaea, he injured himself just after Montas, and he suffered a couple setbacks as well. The good news is that he is feeling much, much better, and he's starting to throw again. But I do worry about him long term, not just because of it's taking a while to come back, but because he also changed his grip last year. And anytime a pitcher changes the way they throw, it does affect their health, or at least I believe it does. So regardless of all that, I think, like I said, Blackburn very soon, Montas early June, and then Manaea hopefully later in June.
All right. I want to see you do that study, Dave, or write that article looking at these pitchers who have had a change in their arm slot or angle and see if there is any correlation between that and increased risk of injury. I think that would be an FSWA award winner, because God knows we're not winning one. We need you to win one. So that's
Let's see what I can do.
Yeah. Not that you don't have enough on your plate right. But anyway, we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back. All right, we are back. In our next segment, we are going to be taking a look at some playing time trends. So I'm going to be transparent here. We were supposed to have a guest today, and had another cancellation at the last minute. So it happens. It gets a little frustrating, though, of course. But we adjust here on the fly. We stay flexible, and we pivoted to this topic of looking at some players who are gaining and losing playing time. So I spent some time today and just went through every team on Roster Resource, and this is, if you're not using this resource, you have to. Like, if you're serious about fantasy baseball, this is a must-use tool that we have on Fangraphs. Go to the top of the page where it says Roster Resource. Click on that, and then you just go to depth. You could see the depth chart for each team. And when you click, one of the tabs says In-Season Tools. And what's amazing about it is it'll show you the lineups going back all the way to the beginning of the season. And it's very easy using that to spot trends in playing time. So that's what I did today. I just pulled up every team and just took some notes about some things that I noticed. And this actually, I feel like this is probably something I should do more often. You know, I kind of noted to myself, I'm like, I probably should do this maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks and just take a look, because you know, we miss things, right? Like we miss, like, some players, like, all of a sudden they're losing at bats, and, you know, it may be just like a game here, a game there, and then we don't realize it for a couple of weeks. And by then we're already losing really important at bats. And we look at the players who often finish at the top, usually they're leading in total at bats, right? So we got to really pay attention to this. So I had a list here. I mean, I don't think we're going to have time to go through all of them, but I know I shared it with you guys. I'll start with you, Dave. If there's anything that really stuck out to you that you think is really actionable in terms of some of these playing time trends that I noted.
Yeah, for me, one of the big ones was what you have here, the 50-50 split between Baldwin and Murphy.
Baldwin, we're talking about Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy of the Braves.
Yeah.
They're two catchers.
Yeah, Baldwin's really been doing well. And I know at the beginning of the year, he was seen more as an emergency player while Murphy was recovering. But they seem to really like him. And like you said here, too, with Murphy's injury history, I'd be buying Baldwin right now. I know in TGFBI, I'm rostering both of them as my catchers. I drafted them, and I'm doing actually pretty decent with them. So for me, I would, if I am in a 2-catcher league, I'm trying to get both of them because I think they're both going to find their way into the lineup. And I'd be buying Baldwin anywhere I can.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Sean Murphy, it stinks, right? Because you were expecting him to be, as much of an everyday catcher, or maybe not quite that upper tier, but you were expecting pretty much full-time PT from him. And it looks like Drake Baldwin now has earned a really an even split, 50-50. Like he started today. Murphy yesterday, the day before Baldwin. So it's right down the middle right now. And I think Baldwin went 3 for 4 today. And the skills he's putting up, I mean, I know he was a top prospect, but usually these catchers take a while to develop offensively, when they first come into the league. And I mean, he's hit the ground running. He's got a 14% barrel rate, 66% hard hit rate. I mean, he's one of the leaders in the league in hard hit rate.
Yeah.
Not striking out that much right now. His strikeout rate is 17%. I mean, he's a stud. He's really, like, I wouldn't even be shocked if he if we get to more of like a 60-40 split for Baldwin if he continues what he's doing. So he's someone who's probably out there in a lot of 12 teamers. And I think right now, in a 2 catcher league, he's probably gone, but I think he's someone that you're just buying in most formats right now, given what we're seeing from him. Mike, let me ask you, anything from this list in terms of playing time that really stuck out to you?
I'm mad at you.
Okay, tell me.
So halfway through the list, I just see the following words: White Sox, ... Who cares?
Come on. What does anybody care? Do we care about any players from a fantasy perspective?
Wait, they've won 4 out of 6. They got saves this week. It's coming together, boys. It's coming together.
Saved, right. Well, I sent you that today. They're 4-1 since Pope Leo. Since they announced Pope Leo. So
he's the man.
They've got divine intervention. So that's the only thing that was going to save them, and it's working.
Well, yeah, the one thing I would say that they Chase Mydroth and Miguel Vargas are somewhat interesting, and Edgar Cuero hasn't hit any home runs yet, but he's hitting the ball really well. He's hitting almost 300. So yeah. I'll skip out on that. But the guy that I thought that was really I've been writing about him in my weekly waiver wire column is Josh Smith down in Texas. I feel like he's the guy that's always on the waiver wire in so many leagues, and he's really a useful player. I mean, did you guys realize that last year he hit 258 and had 13 home runs and 11 stolen bases, and he had 592 plate appearances? Like, that struck me. I'm like, man, I didn't think that dude played that much. He's playing a lot, and he's batting leadoff right now. They've had a lot of injuries in Texas. They've had some ineffective play. Guys like Evan Carter, he's back now, but he was down for a while. They sent Jake Berger down for a week. He's back now. But Smith has been a pretty consistent force at the top of that lineup. And right now he's hitting 311. He's got 4 home runs and 4 stolen bases. And the underlying metrics are good underneath that. He's squaring up the baseball. His expected batting average is right exactly where you would think it would be. He's a really good base runner. He's got some runway here to play. And in Yahoo leagues, he's got multiple position eligibility. He's got shortstop, third base, and outfield eligibility in some places. So he's a really valuable piece. And so I think that playing time, people are going to start catching up to that. He's a guy that should be starting to get rostered in more leagues.
Absolutely. Hitting leadoff, multi-position eligibility, decent skill set. He's not, he's not a quote unquote league winner, right? But I think a guy who's really solid for now, and definitely while Seager is out, he's been playing every day. So a buy for Josh Smith. Dave, what about I think you had a question about the Yankees, because things are kind of starting to get a little bit messy there.
Yeah, my question was actually going to be to you. What do you see happening with Grisham and Rice and Goldschmidt happening? Even right now, I don't think they expect Grisham to be doing what he is doing, but I know Stanton's starting to pick things up. Not that he's really close to the point of coming back anytime soon, but what do you see happening in the near future?
It's going to be a mess. And I hear your cat apparently has an opinion. Is she a Yankee fan or?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I bet the cat doesn't like Giancarlo Stanton either, Chris.
No. I mean, how could you? No, that's me. I mean, I can't hate on Stanton anymore, especially because of the postseason he had last year.
So, here we go. There's a Yankee fan again.
I mean, I've never been a Stanton guy, but yeah. I've got to be fair. Like,
what have you done? What have you done for me lately? Right? Yeah, that's welcome to New York.
Yeah, no, I'm a pretty fair. I don't, I don't get too too in love with my team. I try to play it down the middle with them. But anyway, yeah, we don't know about Stanton when he's gonna come back. When he does, I think it really becomes a mess. But I think right now what we're seeing is that Grisham, Ben Rice, and Paul Goldschmidt, they're all kind of splitting. And I think they're all, neither of them, or none of them rather, are going to really be everyday players. I think it's really going to be, I think if Grisham cools down, then I think it'll go back to those other guys just because they have more of a track record. But Grisham is showing no signs of cooling down. That is one of the wildest things. One of the wildest stories, I feel like, of the year, given, what is he up to now? 12 home runs or something like that. He's one of the league leaders. Like, it's bizarre. I have to think that's going to cool down. And with that, I think he'll start to lose some playing time, but they're going to ride it for now. It just kind of stinks, man. Cause like Ben Rice, that dude, like he's the first baseman of the future for this team. He's playing great. I'd love to see him just play every day. I'd love to see him over Goldschmidt, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's just a little bit of a mess. And, injuries happen. These things have a way of working themselves out. But just something to keep in mind, like if you have any of those players, you're not necessarily getting every day at bats from them. All right. Let me just mention a few other ones here. Andy Pages, if he's out there in 12 teamers, 10 teamers, go get him. He is now an everyday player. One of the reasons his stock really fell during the offseason was that we didn't know what the playing time was going to look like. Started out in a short side platoon. He's playing every day. I think he's fully breaking out. I know we did our exercise a few weeks ago where we looked at rest of season projections, and I went and looked at Pages's BAT-X projection for the rest of the year, and they now have him with full-time PT, and that would make him with his, I forget how many, what exactly it was, but he's got decent power. He's going to chip in some stolen bases, and that made him the 153rd overall player on their ranking system moving forward, including hitters and pitchers. So pretty valuable. So he's someone that you buy. I think you go out and try to trade for if you're in a trading league. If he's available in your league, I mean, probably only available in 10 teamers at this point, but I think he's even reached that threshold where he needs to be rostered universally. The Guardians was something that really stood out to me, is that their playing time is just all over the place. Stephen Vogt, there's no like clear platoon as with most teams, like, left-handers hit against right-handers. No, Stephen Vogt just kind of does whatever he wants. Like even Nolan Jones is not playing, against all right-handers. So it's just kind of a mess. So I would avoid a lot of these kind of fringe Guardians bats. And one last thing, Trey Sweeney playing every day for the Tigers, hitting well at shortstop. He's a buy. I think we're seeing really improved skills from him, and he's someone that I think you feel confident in going after here. Let's transition to bullpens. I'm going to keep it
our favorite.
Here. The bullpen BS is the segment that we've decided to roll with that name. But Mike, my question to you is, let's look forward, right? We can look at the guys who've already lost their jobs, but it doesn't matter. Like, you're probably too late on picking up their replacements. I want you to tell me, who is the next capital C closer, in your opinion, that loses their job, and who should we be picking up?
Ooh, that's a really good one. It's such a messy situation looking at bullpens, right? I mean, one guy that kind of jumps out to mind right now that might come as a surprise to a lot of people is Jeff Hoffman. He had 2 saves earlier in the week. He blew one in majestic fashion on Tuesday night. And then last night they used Yimi Garcia to get a save, even though Hoffman had only pitched 21 pitches the night before. So, my lean right away would be Hoffman, but I also would like to point out too that I just recently purchased the MLB TV package because it was on sale for $69.99 for the rest of the season.
I meant
Instead
to
of
do
paying
that. Oh, I got to check if that's still available.
instead of $150. And I'll tell you, I watched the Philadelphia game the other night, and Jordan Romano looked insanely good.
Yeah.
And he's got 2 saves this week. So I think that it's safe to call the Philadelphia situation a co-closer spot, right? I think he'll use Alvarado and Romano intermittently, but Romano looked really good. The fastball looked really good. It had life. He owned the inner half of the plate. He looked really good. So that could be a really interesting situation to watch there. And Chris, I'm sad to report too that it really does appear that the Luke Jackson era has come to an unceremonious end in Texas.
So sad.
The bad news there, though, is that both he and Chris Martin were injured in the last 2 days. Martin's had an MRI, came back clean, and Jackson took a line drive off the hand, and he's supposed to be okay too. But they've had Jacob Webb and Sean Armstrong get saves the last couple of days, so I don't know what the heck's going to happen there.
Yeah, that one's. I mean, we talked about Robert Garcia last week. Do you think, assuming Martin and Jackson are not available, like is he the next man up, or is it just going to be a mishmash of all those guys you just mentioned?
It seems like Bochy likes to use Garcia in really small samples. I mean, Garcia never really throws more than 8 or 10 pitches, and seems like he's kind of that situational lefty. Although they also have Hobie Milner, but he has a tendency to use Milner a little bit longer in the middle relief kind of section. Garcia is very effective. He's got a strikeout rate up to 31% too. So it would not surprise me at all if Garcia got an opportunity there, but he's left-handed. And we know that a lot of managers have a thing against left-handed closers.
I think it's Ryan Walker, man. I think Ryan Walker's the next guy that loses his job.
Oh, I was already considering him as lost the job, but
really?
Well,
yeah. I mean, he got the last save out though. I think on Sunday, which he blew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's definitely Doval? I mean, I've been seeing some stuff about Randy Rodriguez, and I looked into his skill set, and he's shoving this year.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think is Doval just based on seniority? Like, would he be the guy, or do you think there's maybe a dark horse like Randy Rodriguez in there?
Well, Randy Rodriguez does something very well, which is strike out hitters, and I think my guess would be, if you take a look at it, that, while Rodriguez's numbers are really good so far, putting him into that position, it's a real different kind of thing, right? I mean, guys got to have some experience doing that. Based on the way that Doval has pitched, I would think that Doval would be the first guy up. The 2 setup guys there are largely Doval and Tyler Rogers, but none of them have had a lot of work this week because there's been blown saves. So Walker did blow that save, like you said, on Sunday in pretty high level fashion. He did pitch last night in a non-save situation. I think it would be Doval, but you're right about Randy Rodriguez, although Rodriguez doesn't pitch a lot back-to-back days, and I have to do a little bit more research on that as to try to figure out why he's not. It could be because of the octane that he throws. I mean, he's averaging 97 miles an hour on his fastball, so that could be part of the issue.
Yeah, Doval, like when I watch Doval, I just feel like he doesn't know where the ball's going.
Yeah, he's like an accident waiting to happen, right?
Just his motion and the way he throws the ball, like I just feel like he's just chucking it, and I just don't feel like he is someone, even if he got the job, that I feel confident in. But I guess whatever, if he has the job, he has a job, and you get him. One note on Jeff Hoffman: what a weird year he's having. He looked absolutely maybe like a top 5 closer, right, at one point during this year, and then he's had these just meltdowns where he's just getting blown up. Listen to this. I had Hoffman. Remember that game? Like, it was probably a week and a half ago where Presley gave up the 9 runs.
Yes.
Right. Without getting an out.
Yes.
Hoffman gave up 5. And I think Yimi Garcia gave up 3 or 4. Bro, I had all of them starting on the same team. Can you imagine my face when I woke up the next day and saw that all 3 of my whip was like 12. Like, I've never seen anything like that.
It looks it's like a little league game.
Yeah. So like I have already like a little bit of it's a sore spot for me with Jeff Hoffman. But if you look at the underlying skills,
yeah,
I mean, he's striking out 38% of batters and only walking 5%. So, I mean, one of the league leaders in K minus walk. Everything under the hood looks good. The only problem is that he's given a boatload. He has a 27% home run to fly ball rate. So, I think he's just getting unlucky. But man, he's getting like the luck that he's having is just leading to these abominable outings that just tank the ERA, you know.
Well, remember, you know, and if we go back 2 weeks from today, he had a 1.10 ERA, and now his ERA is 6.05. I mean, that's doing work, baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a mess. Presley, he's done, right? I mean, we should at this point be looking at Porter Hodge.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would avoid that situation entirely right now because Porter Hodge really hasn't been very good either. I mean, he got a save on Saturday, but then he blew one on Sunday. And I guess it's a co-closer situation, but he's not striking anybody out either, and his ERA is over 5. I mean, I don't know what the Cubs are going to do. I mean, they have a couple of guys in there that have done it sort of before. Julian Merriweather has some experience closing. Drew Pomeranz is a guy that they've added in middle relief. He did get a save on Monday in a kind of a weird situation, but this is a team again. It's kind of outrageous. I mean, they're in first place and their bullpen is just pure caca.
Pure caca. Yeah, that's to use that word. A word I used a lot as a kid. So nice, nice job there. Anyway, let's. So we talked bullpens. We've talked playing time. We've talked about my boy Aaron Nola, DeGrom. But we're going to transition away from baseball for our last 10 minutes here. We're going to do our mental health minute, but first we're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, we are back. And for today's mental health minute, we're going to be talking cognitive distortions. Now, most people out there right now are like, what the hell are you talking about? So cognitive distortions are really just a fancy word for like a thinking trap or distorted thinking, maladaptive thinking. And I think this is important to look at because number one, we all, I think, have some type of, not all the time, but I think we all at some point or another kind of fall into these ways of thinking that really aren't helpful for us. Right. They're kind of like irrational ways of thinking. And, you know, I talk a lot with clients about how our thinking impacts the way we feel. Right. And in turn, what we do, the way we behave, and all of that kind of ties together. But oftentimes I like to start with clients by looking at your thinking. And it's not a natural thing to do. Right. Like we're just kind of, many of us are just going about our day on autopilot, doing what we need to do. And we're not actively thinking about like what's on our mind, right? We're just doing what we got to do. And I think it really takes practice and intentionality to really look at what's going on underneath that internal dialogue and, you know, kind of looking at how it's affecting us. So that's, I think, one of the benefits of therapy, right, or counseling is being able to really dive into that stuff and kind of identify maybe how some of your patterns of thinking are having a negative impact on your life. So I had a list here that I shared with you guys, and I just wanted to talk about a few, you know, kind of identify a few of these distortions and see if you have any examples of them. And I'm hoping that somebody listening can hear this and be like, I do that, you know, and kind of like being able to put a name to it and normalizing that. I share this worksheet with clients all the time. It's one of the first ones that I'll share. And a lot of times it's like a light bulb goes on. It's like, oh, I do this. Other people do that too. And then we have a deeper conversation about like how that shows up for them and what the effect of that is. So let's talk about, I think one really common one is personalization.
Yes.
And the definition on the sheet that I gave to you guys, the belief that you're responsible for events outside of your control.
Yes.
And the example that it gives here, quote, my mom's always upset. She would be fine if I did more to help her. So like this idea that we have this level of responsibility, right? That a lot of times is like kind of outside, like we're interpreting it in a very kind of, not very rational way, right?
Mhm.
So Mike, let me start with you. Any does that resonate with you at all? Any
Yes.
experience
Yes.
with actually you kind of alluded to it today. Actually, do you mind if I share what you shared with me today about the
No,
whole
please
okay.
go
So
ahead.
Mike texted, as I mentioned before, um, our guest that was supposed to come on with us backed out at the last minute, and Mike, just I know the kind of guy he is. He felt bad about it, right? Because Mike is the one who kind of gets the guests, and he texted us that he kind of takes it personally, right?
Mhm.
When things like that don't work out, and I think that's actually a really good example of this, because and what I told you is that's out of your control, man.
Right.
Like
Right.
that, like this person, had a family event or whatever, like you didn't know, right? And they didn't
Right.
let you know till today. So it's
Sure.
like, what are you gonna do? And
Right.
I get it because I probably would have felt the same way. I kind
Mhm.
of struggle with this myself. I try to take on, I take on responsibility for things that I probably shouldn't,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's an example though of like, if you really looked at that, no, that's not my fault, and
Right.
like
Right.
being able, rather than beating yourself up, you could say, all right, I did the best that I could, or you could kind of
Yes.
like reframe what you're telling yourself about it so that you don't feel like crap, right? Does that
Yeah, and
make sense?
totally,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, I go back a long way with personalizing issues like that, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I hold myself personally responsible for so many things that have gone wrong, and a lot of those things are beyond my control. Some are not,
You're
And
right.
when I
Right.
was younger, I used to feel guilty all the time about that for the thoughts that I had, the feelings that I had, knowing that I shouldn't have them, and that made me sometimes feel kind of ashamed and inadequate, as a
Yep.
friend, husband, dad, coworker, whatever. And so as I've gotten older, I've kind of learned that that problem for me is sort of self-created, and it's a
Mhm.
consistently wrong reaction to the outer stimuli around me, if that makes sense. And
Absolutely.
so I think you have to kind of grab that bull by the horns and make some tough decisions about how you're going to handle that. And you doing that with me allowed me to hit the reset. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I totally identify with that. I have this I don't know if it's because I grew up in, very religious, and you kind of there's like this like, I'm not saying religion is bad, but like there is this kind of component to it that you kind of feel that guilt about everything, and this kind of guilt and shame, and I feel like I internalized, for other reasons as well, kind of internalized that. And I had this automatic reaction, and I really have to be intentional and paying attention, right? Because sometimes I'll go down that road where I'm personalizing something that's really I shouldn't be, but I'm often running with it, and before I know it, I'm feeling really badly, right? Or really anxious, or really like beating myself up and causing myself unnecessary suffering. So it's something that it's not easy to change. The first step, as with all of these cognitive distortions, is to just notice, right? To just pay attention to what your automatic reactions to things are, how you're interpreting things. Because a lot of times it's not accurate, right? It's we just because we have the thought doesn't make it true. Um, let's do another one. Let me bring in Dave. I'm gonna take a stab at one here that I think Dave might be able to identify with. Um, fortune telling. The expectation that a situation will turn out badly. This says without adequate evidence. I don't know. And the reason I kind of singled you out with this one, Dave, because you are very like I know you're the injury guy, right? And I
Mm.
think part of what makes you good at that is that you foresee like potential negative outcomes, right? And maybe sometimes like overly kind of like anticipate those things. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
No,
And
you hit it right on the head there. No, because I overthink.
you
Uh,
overthink, and I see that even outside of the baseball stuff.
Yeah, it's just something in my mind. If there's a situation, I'm like a flow chart, and it's just if this happens, this is going to happen, or this could happen, and then if that happens, then it's just one giant flow chart for anything. So, as good as I think I am with dealing with things and understanding what could happen and being prepared for it, it does exhaust me sometimes to the point where I'm over analyzing situations to the point where they're probably not as bad as I'm even thinking they would be. And sometimes I do over worry about things, or I'll just, I'm just so prepared for any situation at times that I just ruin the moment and can't enjoy the ride to get there because sometimes I'm just thinking about this and then that and then this. I know I get it from my mom. So
Okay. Yep. Well, it often happens that way, right? We get it from one of our family or parents, and
yeah,
I think there's a genetic component, right? But
Oh, yeah.
also the behavioral, like that behavior is probably modeled for you, right, from a young age. So yeah, it's really hard to break out of that because it's at this point in our lives, right? It's so ingrained.
Mhm.
But again, I think it's possible to maybe move the needle a little bit, right? And it starts by just gaining awareness of it and noticing, like maybe tomorrow, if you start to do that again, maybe just because we talked about it, you'll stop yourself, be like, oh yeah, here I go again with the kind of anticipating this thing is going to be negative and overly focusing on that. So
Yeah, and that comes with life experience as well.
Right.
If a situation is familiar, you can think back and say, you know what, it really wasn't that bad the first time. Why would it be even worse this time? You
Right.
can handle it, and you do.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's got to be absolutely that that intentional that practice of just
Yeah.
monitoring that and really trying to catch yourself before it causes you again unnecessary suffering. I'm going to share. So there's probably 10 of these that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, don't have enough time, but I'm going to share this on our Twitter feed, and people are going to look at them like, what is this? This is nothing to do with baseball, but I'm going to share it anyway, and hopefully someone can find it helpful. We're going to get out of here though. Real quick, I just got a notification. Sean Armstrong of the Rangers is coming on for the 9th inning to close out a 1-0 game for Jacob DeGrom after he went 8 innings. So we were talking about the Texas bullpen. Maybe Sean Armstrong is the guy to get.
That's a name to write down. Yeah.
We will see. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to leave it there. We'll be back with another episode next week. For Mike Carter, for Dave Funnell, I'm Chris Torres. Thank you for listening to Fantasy Baseball Beat.